Tell you what's really going on in the news. What mainstream media won't tell you. Are you frustrated with your elected politicians? Get the news behind the news at truthradio.com. On Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs on demand. Listen when
Am I in your way or anything? Am I in your way or anything? I'll be done in 1 hour.
Is Larry Dodge. Years ago, Larry Dodge attended and spoke at a seminar, and video of that seminar has been in the library of Truth Radio for many years. I now have the DVD of Larry Dodge's speech about jury power. If you're interested in the jury issue and how juries should be empowered to judge both the facts and the law, I'll be happy to send you this DVD. When you write for it, to ask for the Larry Dodge DVD about jury power, Dodge on jury, and I think you will really benefit by listening to this. Our address is P.O. Box 344, Boehner, California, zip code 93444. That's P.O. Box 344, zip code 93444.
All right, we're back. My guest is Jim Condit, Jr. He is running for Congress. And when is that election coming up, Jim?
That'll be in November. I'm on the ballot as the Constitution Party against John Boehner, Speaker of the House in District 8 of Ohio. And my website, I got a good one thanks to somebody in the Constitution Party, LetFreedomRing2014.com. It kind of rhymes. LetFreedomRing2014.com. Now, if anybody, and again, I know people are hurting, so if you can't donate to anything right now, let alone me, then just pray that we get the right people and all these causes that will support us. But if anybody wants to help me put radio ads on right in the middle of Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity, radio ads that the Clear Channel station hates. I'm always playing guerrilla warfare, whether they're even going to run the commercials, because the reasonable access law passed in the 70s by Congress says that if you're a federal candidate, Congress president, they must run your ads. And in the show, not the minute you ask, but if they let businesses buy 2 minutes in Rush Limbaugh's show in Phoenix, and I want to buy 2 there, they got to let the federal candidate buy the account. So we're getting messages to the Sean Hannity and the Rush Limbaugh and Glenn Beck listeners. Hopefully, some of them have got to be scratching their head and saying, are we getting the whole truth? Are we getting the whole truth from Fox News? So I put on something. This time I'm going to emphasize heavily the secret computer counts. After the final count was in Clay in 2010, when I ran against Boehner on Constitution Party, they stole 30,000 votes from me and maybe got from second place, beating the Democrat to last place behind the Libertarian. I think I got those votes in large part because I had Constitution Party next to my name, and a protest here where people were sick of both Republicans and Democrats and really knew they were sick of them. But 20 minutes after the final count, in New York City, they just switched my vote. Took 33,000 away from me, added 33,000 to the Democrats. So we're going to use that, but also emphasize, as long as these secret counts are in existence, don't tell us we like people like Hillary Clinton, which is absurd. There's a few lefties around New York City and other left-wing strongholds that love Clinton. I don't know what's the matter mentally. She's not even funny. She never said a funny thing in public. She never said a clever thing or an interesting thing in public that I've ever heard. She's ugly, at least hard to look at, as my grandma used to say. She's overweight. Now, this is total smoke and mirrors that any part of the population likes Hillary Clinton, but they're going to maybe jam her down our throat or one of the other puppets with as long as we have these secret computer counts. So I'd like to get millions of Americans saying, hey, wait a minute, we're not counting our votes in secret. Who is this who's counting our votes in secret? We need an open count and they're decreasing. And then with the internet, no matter how much propaganda they throw at us over the dwindling viewership of NBC, ABC, and the cable stations are maybe growing, but they still don't have more than, they don't have a ton of people watching these cable stations yet, maybe 3 or 4 million, I think, is Fox the largest. But we can then get a fair count and start to replace a lot of these pukes that they have in office that they tell us that we love to vote for year after year. So that's what I'm going to be doing. But the traffic, the reason I diverted a lot of my efforts in the last few months to help Jim Traficant, the former great congressman of Youngstown, Ohio, who was put in jail for 7 years for absolutely nothing. Actually, I would say more than he was put in jail because he stood up for us. He saved an innocent man, John DeMoniak, from being executed in Israel by revealing that this guy could not have been the terrible. He made the IRS have the burden of proof when they took a family's home and a bunch of other stuff. But if 97, right before the trafficking language was put into law, they took 10,800 homes, something like that, a little more than that, from American families without having to go to court and prove their case. Once they had to go to court and prove their case after the trafficking language became law, then they only took 57 homes, only 57 homes in that year. So right there, the IRS, which is the Communist Collection Agency for the Talmudic Jews running the international banks, right there they hated the cat, right? Just for that, because he took all this if you will, this Goyim property that they think they should be able to take in America or anywhere else, and he stopped that. And he'd been working on that, he told me, since he got in Congress in 1984, So, anyway, he is in my opinion, Clay, he is the greatest speaker in the United States right now. He holds the attention of the audience better than any speaker. He's more interesting. He's funny. He can be moving. And he also, is probably the best interview in the United States. Yet ever since he got out of prison in 2011 and did an interview on Greta Van Susteren, which is on YouTube, has over 545,000 views, part one of that Greta Van Susteren interview, and there's more than one YouTube up on that. And when he said midway through that he said, I don't know if you want to hear this. I don't want to hurt your show. You're fair. You got one of the best. But he said, the Israeli lobby has a powerful control over our money, over Congress, over our media, and it's not good for America. He said, I'm American first. He said, I don't hate anybody, but I'm American first, and I have to stand up for America. Another time on the floor of the House when they were debating whether to make Jerusalem, the House to vote a resolution to make Jerusalem the capital of a country calling itself Israel. I mean, for heaven's sakes, that's none of our business. And after everybody got up there and said, I don't like this being in the Senate, but I'm going to vote for it anyway because I always support Israel, Traficant told me, he got up and said, look, I wasn't elected to the Knesset. I wasn't elected to the Parliament in Great Britain. I was elected to the Congress of the United States of America. And I'm going to vote in our interest, and I'm voting no here because this is not something the Congress of the United States should be dealing with. This and 1,000 other things. When people find out about Traficant, they realize we have a populist hero, a man who truly wants to be a father to our country, not an abuser to our country like so many of these congressmen who are serving the diabolical internet banks instead of serving the people of the United States. And really at this point, by straightening out the banksters, by getting rid of the Fed and replacing it with a honest, in the open money issuing entity, and by getting rid of the IRS, we in America could help all the people of the world if we started to free them from the IMF and all these usurious, vulturous, parasitic international banking operations.
That's absolutely right and true. And let me say this. I've tried to do things by the book. In 1996, and I'm sure you probably remember Charles Collins. He was on my show.
Oh yeah, I talked to him a number of times in the 96 and 2000 campaign. Is Charles still with us? I haven't followed him.
No, he had died 2 years ago.
Oh, for heaven's sake! Yeah, he was the one. And I think you're going to tell what his claim to fame was, or what he taught a lot of us. But go ahead. Yeah.
He wanted to eliminate and buy back the Federal Reserve according to the their own paperwork, and he was the first Republican to sign up for the presidential race. And I traveled with him from Maine to California, through Dallas, through Phoenix, through Michigan, and I was his bodyguard, I was his friend, I was his driver, and his speechwriter.
Okay.
And every time we got up, we'd get there to California, to Oakland, I'd put all the Collins for president up beside the Dole for president, beside the Buchanan, beside the Keys for president. We'd go into the room the next day. There was not a sign of Charles Collins on the wall.
Wow.
And every time he got up to speak, every cameraman on stage, ABC, NBC, CBS, they turned the cameras off and pointed them at the ground. And in 2 states, in Maine and Michigan, they unplugged his microphone while he was speaking.
Yeah.
In Florida, they wouldn't even allow us.
I'm hearing you because I'm dropping through in place in Virginia here. So if we get disconnected, I'll call you right back.
You got to disconnect?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yeah, we go in and out of these circuits and little mountain type things.
Yeah, I can still hear you. Well, now it seems like I've lost you. Do you want me to call you back? All right, let's try that.
This is Jim Condit Jr. Thanks for calling. Please leave a message at the tone. Sorry, that mailbox is full.
Yes, Jim.
Okay, sorry, I'm driving and going out of Virginia into, I guess, Maryland, and sometimes you go through these little thickets where there's like little mountains and trees, and it cuts the phone off. So if I get disconnected, I'll call you right back.
Okay, no problem. No problem. I got
heard
you.
what you were saying there, and yeah, Charles Collins taught me, and I guess.
All right, hold on just a second. Call me back. Call me back. I've got to. I answered your call and I didn't add it. Just call me right back, please. All right, trying to get this working here. Did I get you, Jim? Whoops. Hey, all right. Jim, have I got you?
Jim Condit Jr. Thanks for calling. Please leave a message at the tone. Sorry, that mailbox is full.
We're working on getting Jim Condit back up. Have I got you, Jim?
This is Jim Condit Jr. Thanks for calling. Please leave a message at the
All right, we're trying to get Jim Condit back up. Meanwhile, what's happening in the Blog Talk studio? All right. Dr. D-Charge has the Free American magazines up there. We got them. It's available. try to get Jim Condit back up.
This is Jim Condit Jr. Thanks for calling. Please leave a message at the tone. Sorry.
What's going on here? Have I
This
got?
is Jim Condit Jr. Thanks for calling. Please leave a message at the tone. Sorry, that mailbox.
All right, we've lost Jim Condit Jr. All right. Yeah, been a lot of years ago, David. Been a lot of years ago. And, okay, we're still on we're on Crusade, we're on Blog Talk. Let me try to get Jim back up. He may be in a dead area right now.
Lenny?
Yes, sir. Got you now.
Okay. If I don't know what I'm going through that stuff, but I see some towns up there. I'm going to pull over somewhere where we got continuous coverage for the rest of the show, so we don't annoy your listeners and everybody else by breaking off all the time. So.
All right. Well, if you see a place to stop where it's convenient for you, it's safe for you, but you are coming in. You are coming in well now.
Okay, I'm avoiding the toll bridge on the Pennsylvania Turnpike by going the more scenic route to West Virginia and Route 50. But it didn't occur to me that maybe there's less coverage out here in the more rural areas where I started driving this way. But at any rate, the traffic can't say, here's why you're interested in helping, and I have been helping Jim Traffic and try to launch this off the ground. He is voice, the personality, he's got the record. I mean, he proved him, I'm sure, he may not have told you, but he interviewed him. George W. Bush sent him when he was in jail a year and a half, or 6 months to a year and a half, about 2003. And he was supposed to be until 2009 when he ended up serving. He said if he would sign a paper that he was guilty of what these charges they threw against him with no physical evidence, and many witnesses and jurors who have now said they didn't like convicting him, they didn't like lying about him, but they were pressured with him, all kinds of pressure, and the witnesses with themselves in jail if they didn't lie about him. But he could have signed a paper saying, I'm guilty. They were letting him out 6.5 years earlier. He wouldn't sign it. And that's a guilty when you sign that, right? You sign it to get out of jail and save 6.5 years to your life. And this guy, so he used the old worn-out phrase, he not only talks the talk, he walked the walk. He did it. He missed his daughter's wedding. He missed 3 grandchildren. To not let them, when they were 2 years old, he convicted him. A criminal man, people that convicted him, including the judge, should go to, right? And so he wouldn't sign it. That right there should tell anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together that he was an innocent man. And he was in there for standing up for us. There's plenty of people in Congress that aren't known guilty of crimes. Like Charles Rangel, I think he's from New York State. Charles Boehner is convicted of crimes, and he's still in custody. So Trafficking was serving diabolical international bankers with a diabolical program. He would never be sent to jail in the first place. So I'm sure his name was George Hanson 20 years ago. I'm sure you remember that, right? He was put in jail for the same thing, trying to really harness in and end the IRS. And if these guys were serving the bad guys, they never would have put jail in the first place.
If, again, just to go back to Charles Collins, if nobody in the country knows somebody is running, if the television stations refuse to even put them on and allow their speeches to go on television, how can we even know who to vote for? I mean, I call the Republicans and Democrats two wings of the same bird, and the bird's a global vulture, is not an eagle.
Exactly. And see, yeah, this is a good point. That these people running ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, NPR, New York Times, Washington Post, these people should, in my opinion, be arrested for treason. They are protecting the interest of a foreign power in two aspects. The international bankers form a multinational shadow government. So that's one power. And then their one of their big subsets is Israel. So then these people have censored candidates like Charles Collins, and really even, let's say, Buchanan and Ron Paul and Trafficking now, who's not for president, but they're censoring our natural leaders. So in Charles Collins' case, they totally censored him. He was teaching me and all of us that is right in the Federal Reserve Act. When they passed it in 1913, of course, the Fed was saying, we're going to do this to help the country, so they had to kind of wanted a way out if it didn't work, and it's right there. And Charles Collins, I don't know about you, but he taught me about that. He was a banker in Georgia, I think, a community banker in Georgia, right?
Yes, sir, and he gave me one of Kennedy's $5 bills with a red seal that says United States note. I still carry that in my wallet.
Was that what Kennedy issued?
Yes. Executive Order 11110.
Yeah, and I say to people, for heaven's sakes, they try to act like with nothing when John Kennedy issued all those United States dollars. And for heaven's sakes, if it's so nothing, how come no president since have done it? Now, one of the most evil men that ever left the earth, William James Johnson, made it a priority to order the banks to pull those back in as soon as he took out the White House after Kennedy was shot.
That's
so
right.
This idea that this is nothing, I can't buy it because now somebody in Florida who's very knowledgeable and explained to me in the last few years that Kennedy's hope, and Kennedy made a mistake with this. He should have gone on TV, talked to people what he was doing and why he was doing it. Then if he got shot, people would say, wait a minute, but now they could pass on still to many people that he was, that he was shot by Oswald, picked up an old rifle and took a lucky shot, But the point is that this was, in several different reasons, I think Kennedy was shot. But the point is he should be found, and this fellow in Florida was explaining to me, he was hoping they would come to the point where the U.S. dollars were in circulation and the Fed notes, and at the grocery store they say, well, what do you want for your change? Do you want the Federal Reserve notes or the U.S. dollar, I think, backed by silver? And he was there hoping that the people would say, well, I want the U.S. dollars backed by silver, and it was stuff to run the Fed out of business. But you can't go along for these people when they control the media, can have the money to set up the assassination squads and they think that. So that's if I was back there, John Kennedy, who was only 46 years old, I would have, and his dad had gotten the stroke. If his dad was there, it might have gone different because he was on to this network that we're fighting. Regardless of the force of Joe Kennedy or whatever, he was on to the network, and nobody was there to really give the type of advice that was needed to make sure that the U.S. dollar became again the currency of the United States. But thanks to Charles Collins for teaching us all this. And this is what Trafficking cites. He cited it in his his talk up here that we can just use that provision to simply end the Fed, divorce the Fed, and then put up an honest money issuing entity that would issue money for the country without interest to the country. As you know, Clyde, the idea of paying interest to private bankers to issue a country's money is beyond ridiculous. People will look back and say, hey, in the second half of the 20th century and in the beginning of the 21st century, humanity was in the dark ages as far as issuing money is concerned.
It's amazing to me. I mean, our founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, warned us, if you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land we conquered. And we've got more homeless people right now. Many of our veterans are homeless. And they're cracking down on them too, Jim. They are making it, some states, some counties are making it illegal to be homeless. And they're setting up their FEMA centers and herding these homeless people into FEMA centers.
Wow. That, and we got, I think we got 6 or 7 million homes out of the 60+ million homes that are vacant. Vacant. Now, I'm not for socialism, you're not for socialism, we're for level playing field, free enterprise. I'm not, and you're not for vulture capitalism or monopoly capitalism, we're for free enterprise capitalism. But when you have the situation I'm looking at right now, where the banks are strangling the United States people one at a time by not issuing the proper kind of money, by having money issued and interest and all this type of thing, I would rather see people living in those. Right now they're just decaying anyway. Then people forced out into the street. Even if they, anyway, the point is that we don't want any centralized planning, like socialism or communism, but we're living in an age of plenty. And if we had and Fred alluded to this in his talk, he said something very important about this subject. If we're living in an age of plenty, and if we would issue money properly with no interest to the people, you could still have private banks that give, business people who are trying to build their business. I'd like to see the bank up, themselves and enabling the local community businesses to compete with all these big corporations that now have taken over everything, like Staples and Max and Target. All these companies sprung up out of nowhere between 1985 and 1996. They had all the capital they needed to build a big, nice store. I like Staples. But they had the capital to build these, the loans from the Fed. You're just talking about the corporations that grow up around the international bank. These three companies, for instance, let me give you one example. Staples, Office Depot, owned by Jewish interests, came up out of nowhere with unlimited credit from the Fed and the banks connected with the Fed in 1986 to 1987. There were 18,000 family office and regional office supply businesses then. Within 10 years, there were only 4,000 office supply businesses owned by regional and family businesses. Most of them were in small towns. And Condit and Staples and Office Remax was the unlimited credit they had, which was an unfair advantage, because if you're going to give it to one corporation, it should be access to any credit-worthy corporation. But then there's 15,000 basically family businesses out of business in 10 years. This is, I know everyone listening is not Catholic. I'm a troglodyte, pre-Vatican II dinosaur Catholic, good as the Lot Mass, and actually believes that the Vatican was taken over by the Rothschild, by the International Banking Interest in 1958, when the conclave was hijacked, and Cardinal Siri had been elected. Two government documents say that Cardinal Siri they shoved him aside, this is somewhat speculation, but they shoved him aside under nuclear threats, and they put in this John the 23rd, which began the revolution in the church to turn Catholic. Just like Jeremy Falwell and Pat Robertson were trying to turn the evangelical brains into mush, John the 23rd and John Paul II, who was from a communist country, they have been striving to, and all the rest of these Vatican II folks, to turn the Catholics' brains into mush, okay? That's just a side note here, but I'm saying that this is all part of the subversion. But we need to, what I was getting at there was that Pope Pius XI in 1931, in his encyclic said that if you have monopoly capitalism and a few people at the top are owning everything, and then that leads the people to be susceptible to communism and socialism because they start to get so desperate. They listen to the socialists and so forth. So what we need again is just to arrest all these bankers, arrest all the people running the big media for treason, and then put there an honest American-run, in America's interest, money-issuing entity that will issue money properly and without interest to the country. And this is what Charles Collin was getting at. And of course, this is the most desperately issue as far as the international bankers are concerned. Because once you take away their power to issue money, they will just be running for the borders before we can arrest them for treason, and they know it.
You know, Cornwallis warned George Washington about this one world government. He warned him that if you allow these Jews, the Jewish religion in here, they will subvert the Christians until your Americans will be supporting a divine world government that will actually be the English Empire. It was that city of London, it was the Rothschilds that gave away Palestine to the Jews. I think what they did is create a safe country, a place where they could have nuclear weapons, where they could threaten the rest of the world, and if anybody commits a crime somewhere, they can go to Israel and be safe. And you know, Benjamin Franklin, in my first issue of the Restored Free American, after they tried to kill me, after I survived a motorcycle accident with nothing more than 3 broken ribs, they kept me drugged for 3 months, closed the magazine down. I just brought my magazine back in September, and I included in that magazine an article by Benjamin Friedman. Now, Benjamin Friedman was Jewish. He's a Jewish historian. And he gave a speech at the Willard Hotel. And he was there during World War I and World War II. He was there with all of the high-level Jews. He said, Christians have been duped by the unholiest hoax in all history by so-called Jews. This is considered their most effective weapon. The big lie technique is brainwashing. It's brainwashing the United States Christians into believing that Jesus Christ was King of the Jews, in the sense that so-called Jews today call themselves Jews. This reference was first made in English translations of the Old and New Testaments centuries before the so-called Jews hijacked the word Jew in the 18th century to palm themselves off on the Christian world as having a kinship with Jesus Christ. This alleged kinship comes from the myth of their common ancestry with the so-called Jews of the Holy Land in the Old Testament history, a fiction based on fable. American Christians little suspect they are being brainwashed 24 hours every day over television, radio, by newspapers and magazines, by motion pictures, plays, by books, by political leaders in office and seeking office, by religious leaders in their pulpits and outside their churches, by leaders in the field of education inside and outside of their curriculum, and by all leaders in business professions and finance whose economic security demands they curry the favor of so-called Jews of historic Khazar ancestry. The unsuspecting Christians are subjected to this barrage from sources they have little reason to suspect. Incontestable facts supply the unchallenged proof of the historic history that so-called Jews throughout the world today are of Eastern European origin, are unquestionably descendants of the Khazars, a pagan Turco-Finn ancient Mongolian nation deep in the heart of Asia, according to history, who battled their way in bloody wars about the 1st century BC into Eastern Europe, where they set up their Khazar kingdom. For some mysterious reason, the history of the Khazar kingdom is conspicuously absent from history courses in the schools and colleges.
Yeah, and even maps, you have to go back a few centuries to see. Kings was where now the country of Georgia is in Russia right now. And of course, these folks, is Michael Hoffman, the great writer from Idaho, Michael A. Hoffman II, he's pointed out that they have no part in the Old Testament religion at all anyway, and they believe the Talmud. And that's the one, they have no part of anything to do with the Hebrews or Christianity when Christ came, and two, they are not Hebrews. This case, you look at Benjamin Netanyahu, or Kirk Douglas, or Michael Douglas, or so many others that we can name, Menachem Begin. They are not Semitic. They don't look like Osama bin Laden. They don't look like the capital M on the Shroud of Turin. They don't look like Semites. The Russian white people from this fierce King's tribe that converted Judaism because of the Talmud, and I think it was the 8th century, it might have been the 11th, I think it was the 8th though, and basically, by following the Talmud, it's one of the, there's all kinds of stuff in the Talmud, it's 21 volumes or something like that, and they go talk about everything from serious subjects to how the dimensions your white picket fence should be, but as far as the key parts of it, that the non-Jews are not human. It's okay to kill the best of the Gentiles. Okay to steal from them. You can get away from it. This guy's 5 deaths in hell every day. One by blowing extra, and the others are even less possible to say on a family listen to show. The blessed Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus, was a prostitute that had sex with a Roman soldier, and that's where Christ came up. All of this stuff it says that shocks the ears of Christians. I told some people this, and they're like, really? They can't believe it because it's so diabolical. But they've used the Talmud more as a manual for organized crime than as a religion crime. Would you agree with that?
I had some people attacking me, with the whole anti-Semitic. That's a trick we always use, said one of the Jewish leaders. But they were attacking me, and I said, well, read the Talmud, see what they say about Jesus. They were saying, well, we're Christians, and we support Israel. And I said, see what the Talmud says about Jesus. Well, I don't care what the Talmud says. I'm a Christian. They blacked this out, and I just shared before you came up on there, it was an article that I'm working on. And I thought it was pretty relevant, pretty interesting. One of the guests that I just had on my show just sent it to me, and it was talking about how people that have been kidnapped support their kidnappers. And he said, when person A accuses person B, the common response of most people is to question person B, even blindly accept the charges made. This is particularly true of gossip, which seems to be accepted as if it were scripture. Not only does this fly in the face of our purported belief of innocent until proven guilty, it's a mental failing that is a large factor in our ruin. Rational and fact-laden discussion has been replaced with accusation-heavy, emotionally driven yellow journalism, more recently known as slime journalism, that really took off when People magazine proved gossip more popular than factual resistance. And they talk about the yellow journalism used by William Randolph Hearst and the Jew Joseph Pulitzer to arouse their passions, thereby gain support to thrust America into the Spanish-American War, then World War I, later World War II. Pulitzer Prize awards those journalists that help bring about desired outcomes, not the most accurate reporting. They've slime journalism and propaganda have thrived ever since, falsely pushing us into one war after the other, each war vanquishing one country, one region at a time on behalf of the globalists, at the cost to ourselves of geometrically growing and perpetual debt slavery. the death, dismemberment, and mental dislocation of our youth, and the takeover of industry and resources of the elite. It's, you know, one example of this, I came out with my book, Mystery Babylon, The New World Order Unveiled. It's really almost an autobiography of my 40 years being under attack by the powers that be. And that started, Jim, long before I even knew about the whole Jewish question or what their involvement was or who they were.
Yeah.
It was back when I was promoting the legalization of marijuana by starting things like Normal and trying to get some sense here. I also started the so-called paraphernalia industry. And they came after me then. They've tried to set me up. They tried to put me in jail. They actually did put me in jail in Texas for a little while for a little bit of pot by threatening me with 99 years. And when I came out with my book, Mystery Babylon, it's got the whole story of how they tried to kill me when the Israeli companies took over tapping our phones. Amdocs, Converse, authorized by George Bush, they tapped mine, arranged an accident, put me in the hospital. And I came out with that book and took it to some biker bars that I was promoting in my biker magazine that the accident took down. And suddenly, oh, he's selling that book to raise money for a snitch named Huevos. Now, wait a minute. I don't know any snitch named Huevos. The only one I sell a book for to raise money for is me. I wrote the book. I want to sell it. So what they do, how can I prove that this was Jewish-based? Because I had the statement of Jesus to beware the Jews who say they're Jews, but are not, or of the synagogue of Satan, on the cover of my book. And suddenly every biker in Arizona was down on me. Wouldn't let me into any of the events or any of the runs. They do this to keep me from raising any money. How do we combat that? I don't know. I said they're really the whole problem with this. This is an article I'm working for my blog. I say I don't know if these people are working for the enemy or if they've just been so dumbed down by our public fool system that they can't reason, they can't think anymore.
Well, I think it's some of both, and of course it was powerful incentive to be with the basic ruling elite machine rather than trying to change things. Let me mention something else that a while back you triggered in my mind that I learned. I guess I kind of learned it, but I really have learned it thoroughly in these last few weeks, and it was mentioned by several speakers at the Project Freedom USA conference this weekend in D.C., and that was that Benjamin Franklin said at one point, he said, if anybody's up to the war on independence, the Revolutionary War in America against Boehner was fought for a few cents as tax on tea, then it was the Bank of England and Parliament passed laws that the colonists could no longer issue their own scrip, their own money. And Franklin said America was the happiest of places while they were issuing their own money, and families were happy and prosperous. Well, then when they said, we're going to not let you do your own money anymore, you now have to use the money of the Bank of England and pay interest on it. That is what Franklin said caused the Revolutionary War, and that makes more sense because that deals with the whole destiny of a nation. Well, a few taxes on tea probably would not have inspired any kind of even though that was used as a symbol in Boston Harbor at the Tea Party, that was used as a symbol to start the resistance, but it was not the reason. It was to try to stop the United States from issuing the states from issuing their own money and forcing them, trying to force them, which failed, to use the money of the Bank of the City, the Bank of England, the Rothschild money that was running England then, and to pay interest on it. Now, Clint, if I can say before we get done here, the reason I'm helping Trafficant is he's a leader who can inspire hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people potentially. And if people want to help organize with us, what they can do for me is go to projectfreedomusa.org and sign up on the email list so we can stay in touch with everyone. We're trying to get 50 state leaders. We have 6 already. We're trying to get 3,000 county leaders so people can start meeting together in their county and try to do what needs to be done to either persuade or replace the people in office and the party leaders of the Democrat and Republican Party, because the Democrats and Republicans control the county. And as long as, in my opinion, Carl, as long as they're counting the votes on secret computer counts, then the party will be checkmated for the next 1,000 years. So we have to end that by changing the voting systems back to paper ballots, no computers, counted in the open by all the citizens, and it's counties that do this. Each county decides how they're going to count the vote. So I guess what I'm saying is that even if somebody looks at Trafficant's plan, he's just suggesting a sales tax to replace probably the most out for us, as you know, replace it with a sales tax. Some people don't like a sales tax, but don't get lost in the weeds here. We got a leader, there's no other leader that's going to be around from that generation. You're Trafficant 73 now. There's no leader that's going to lead anything of any significance unless it's going to be Trafficant from that generation. And he's the best speaker in the United States. He can inspire people. We're about to issue a lot of clips on the video, on YouTube to get people understanding what's happening here. But don't let something you disagree with it or that stop you from helping us to end the IRS and replace the FIT with an honest money-making entity, which people wanted to do for years. But I think with Trafficant, we get hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people moving in the same direction. So go to projectsusa.org, sign up for the email list. You'll get back a thing, and you confirm that it's you, that somebody's not spamming you. And then tell your friends and so forth, because this is a unique chance to have this man's voice, Jim Trafficant, inspire the people of America. And when people understand the Trafficant story and how they put our best leaders in jail or kill them, then they will understand what's been happening to America these past 50 or 60 years, even 100 years since the Fed came into existence.
All right, I have that the show I did with Kit Trafficant. I have that website up there.
Good.
And I am moving that or adding that right below letfreedomring2014.com for you.
Okay.
And
thank you.
And all of that is up there. And folks, I need to do this too, Jim. I just got a text from a woman, a friend of mine, and this woman, her name's Candy, she helped me out. My motorcycle had a problem. The motor went bad, or the cam went bad on it. The bill was $1,500. I didn't have it. I didn't have any the motorcycle was my only transportation. And she loaned me the money. She loaned me $1,000 to get my motorcycle out of the shop so I can make it to the grocery store, so I can do this radio show. And the only reason I'm doing this radio show is because of her right now, because the powers that be do mess with my show. They mess with my internet connection. Well, they've done more than that now. In the RV park that I was staying in, they have taken the Wi-Fi down completely. So there's no Wi-Fi at my trailer, at my RV park. And the only reason I'm doing the show today is because I was able to come into town. They've got a motel here that's got Wi-Fi, and they let me do it in a room here. So I'm able to do the show today there. And they don't know what's wrong. It's just suddenly the Wi-Fi that's been working there for the last 4 months suddenly went bad. Maybe it's something at the tower. They don't know. Nobody knows. But Candy, who loaned me the money, she was on her way to one of her grandchildren's birthday, and her car broke down. Her car broke down. She had it towed in. Her car will now cost $1,000 to fix. She's 750 miles from home and no place to go. If anybody can send a donation to me at clay@freeamerican.com, that money will go right back to Candy so she can fix her car, so she can get home. This is what they have done to me. At one time, I could have written a check for that. I could have given them a credit card. I had it. When we were doing business as usual, I'm selling books, I'm selling magazines. I used to sell 10,000 magazines a month. Since my accident, I'm lucky if I sell 2 or 3, because I'm blocked in every library and every major corporation, right down to Office Depot. Now, I don't know where to turn. If it wasn't for Candy, I wouldn't be able to eat. I wouldn't be able to I'm 8 miles from town. Without the Harley, I've got it. So, I know you need money too. I know what it costs to run a campaign. I've been there, done that. But I'm asking.
Well, God bless Candy, and I would urge people to help you right now more than me or anybody else. I realize money is what a lot of the movement needs, and of course, if money was being issued properly to the American people, people would have a lot more discretionary income to help all these good causes. There's a lot of good causes, but no, God bless Candy for helping you, and I would urge people also to make it a priority to get your donation. And sometimes, a lot of these efforts, there's 1 or 2 generous people that are blessed with more money. Now, maybe somebody will come close and send you the whole $1,500. If you are in a position to do that, then, because I know how long Clay has been working at this, and then do it, because, God will bless people who have the money, and some people don't, but if they got the discretionary money and can do that, they will be blessed many times over for helping a fellow Patriot and Christian in need. So, yeah, I hope that comes in and helps you and Candy out.
I do too. And, talking about discretionary income, I just had Ambassador Lee Wanta on my show yesterday. And he's got a few billion sitting there in the banks that the banks won't let him have. I mean, he's gone to court, he's tried to do this, and those billions he wants to put back into America. He wants to put people to work. He wants to put a magnetic train, a magnetic rail system in. We've got so much technology, Jim. I had Peter Andrew Lindemann on. He puts out a free energy newsletter. He was on last Friday, and we can run our ships on the water they float on hydrogen. We can, and Washington and Colorado have decriminalized hemp, decriminalized marijuana. They're not putting people in jail for smoking a joint or growing a plant in their backyard. And if you grow a marijuana plant in your backyard, you have basically grown a money tree. It should be legal in the other 48 states too. And I wrote books about this that hopefully will be offering here if we can make it through this week, if I can rescue Candy. And she was there for me when I needed her, and I didn't get any donations in. I think I got one from my co-author, but Candy filled in the gap with money she really didn't have to keep me operational. That's why we're doing this show today. And God bless people like that. Hopefully there's more people in here that haven't been deluded by these false prophets that have stepped up and infiltrated the whole patriot movement and the Christianity. I mean, they have really deluded Christianity with this Talmudic philosophy.
Yeah, you know, we talked again. People need to think about that. That's why Ted Pike, for instance, the pastor minister who they wrote the Other Israel and exposed what the Talmud said, and that video is still on the Google video, and I think his book is called something else. But he exposes one of the authors, some are Jewish authors, who expose everything that's in the Talmud. And then if people are interested in the takeover of the Catholic Church in 58. Overtly by the Rothschild-type forces, there's a website called WhiteSmoke1958.com. There's WhiteSmoke1958.com. But you just reminded me of something that Jim Trafficant wrote in his column in American Free Press about a year ago. Some Japanese folks came out with a Condit around the water. And he commented, and he said, I wonder if we'll be hearing about this a year from now. Well, sure enough, we're not, because the powers that be, the shadow government reaching into almost every country, ties these things up in lawsuits, or sometimes kills the people who bringing the republic and almost energy, free, what amount to and almost energy-free technologies.
Yes, sir. And, I've had Paul Pantone on my show. He created the GEAT device that you can put on your car and get 60 miles to the gallon. And they put him in an insane asylum. They threatened him. They tried to get him signed over his patents when he wouldn't. They put him in an insane asylum for a couple of years.
What was his name again?
Paul Pantone.
That's right. I've heard of him. I have not met him, but I've heard of him. And you're saying has been known for many years from people, and thank you for mentioning that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's GEAT, G-E-E-T International. GEAT is the name of his device. I've known him for 25 years. I used to take him around in my Bronco in California, and we'd go into a gas station and pour waste oil in the gas tank of his little Briggs & Stratton motor with a GEAT device on it, and it'd run. So, and of course there was a guy in Florida, Stan Meyer, who had a dune buggy that ran on water, and they killed him too, Jim.
Yeah. And there was another guy in Tulsa that walked out of a restaurant and said he'd been poisoned right when he was about to give his energy invention out, and he dropped dead right in front of his friends after coming out to Toledo restaurant, and he had a virtually energy-free technology.
We've got it here, and one of the things I told Lee Wanta, you can do your high-speed rail, but point some of that money to restore the self-sufficient family farms. That's the first thing the communists go after. They don't want you being able to feed yourself. They want you eating from those corporate farms, and they want you eating poison. Jim Condit, thank you for being with me. We're out of time here. God bless you, and keep you safe, sir.
You too, Carl. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, what do we got to do here? Yeah, we're almost out of time here. Hang on just a second. Give me some closing music here, would you?
Discover what's really going on in the world that mainstream media won't tell you. At Truth Radio, you can listen live or listen to a large selection of archived programs. TruthRadio.com.